Yes, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I had earlier pressed for a point of order, but I think I can just persecute, or rather prosecute, not persecute. I'm the one who's being persecuted. I can prosecute my point as I make my submissions. Mr. Speaker, yes, it has been the tradition of the House to bring standing orders towards the tail end for the next House. I believe that's what happened last time. And that's also what happened in the National Assembly, where I served, Mr. Speaker, in the last term. I have just one concern, which I think, when the mover replies, will guide how I vote. Mr. Speaker, every day since the 31st of August 2017, when we were sworn in as senators, every week or 2 weeks, when members have stood up to contribute, we have always asked why we don't have an implementation committee. We're leaving the Senate today with a lot of unfinished business that we've passed in our relevant in our respective committees. I have a lot that we did in the Labor Committee, in the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, and the committees we've sat at, that members have expressed continuously that if there had been an implementation committee to make sure the resolutions of this House are followed up consistently, then it would make the Senate more effective. Mr. Speaker, it would be good to get an explanation from the mover why that has not been considered. Because if indeed the purpose of amending standing orders is to ensure a more efficient running of the House, and for the next House, I think that would have been the first and maybe even only amendment. It's the most necessary amendment, Mr. Speaker. We've passed honorarium for former councillors. They've not gotten a shilling. We passed a report on Solai. We saw what happened. Mr. Speaker, we've passed serious reports on Saudi Arabia, on our girls who are going there and are being butchered and sent back in body bags. There's no implementation committee in this House. So I'd like to understand, because maybe what you need to add is the process of amending standing orders. Because it is opaque, it is done behind closed doors, and then the report is rushed on the last day. I don't know how many members here, including the leadership. Senator Orengo has confessed that he's just seen the report yesterday. He's a leader of minority. He's seen it today. I know he doesn't have much interest in how the Senate operates moving forward. In fact, actually himself and Senator Makueni and myself, who intend to be in the executive as governors, have interest in how you operate for those coming back. But we cannot be passing such important rules in such an opaque manner. So, Mr. Speaker, let us understand what was the reasoning, because I'm sure that is something that was canvassed in that committee, I would assume. Why don't we have an implementation committee? The effectiveness of the Senate going forward is not on the high-sounding declarations made on this dispatch box and in every member's seat. It is on what we actually are able to do and to implement, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, beyond that, I think it was very good that we were able to get Swahili version of our standing orders. I believe that was passed. Mr. Speaker, that is a very noble thing. I think we also need to understand how better to communicate to people, and maybe even would have included a Swahili day, that on Thursday afternoons, debate can be done in Swahili. And I'm sure Senator of Mombasa would support that, and Senator of Kilifi, and those of us who support the growth of Kiswahili language. But I think a good explanation as to why that has not been considered would be important, Mr. Speaker, before we vote. And possibly in the next House, for those who are coming back, like Senator Faki and Senator Kilifi, I think you might need to actually do another review at the beginning. For those of you who have the wealth or experience, the institutional memory from this House, that you can guide your colleagues who join you when you come back on what you need to, adjust when the term begins. But beyond that, Mr. Speaker, I think it's really grammatical errors, and it's not the kind of report we expected, given our weekly, I don't want to say lamentations, but weekly misgivings and issues raised by members every time we have an issue in this House. That should have been taken into consideration. Finally, Mr. Speaker, the next time this is done, all senators should be alerted that there's a process of amendment of standing orders. We should be, and if that happened, I was not aware, but members should be asked if they have recommendations on what needs to be amended to give them in. And then we probably have a kamkunji where we discuss what has worked, what has not worked, and what we should improve. Mr. Speaker, that would lead to a more effective Senate moving forward. Thank you.
I'd say it finally, but I can see Mutula Kilonzo Jr. Yeah. You have not pressed, okay?
I've pressed.
Yes, Mutula Jr., okay.
Yes,
Okay.
Speaker, only to echo my sentiments of my colleagues, that